Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you guys had a great day off, and I hope you're going to have a great Halloween today. To kick us off today, guys, want to let you know in the chat, I did put a link to today's Pear Deck. We are going to use that today in several of the slides. Now, for Monique, for this presentation, you don't really have to do it, but if I was really doing this with students right here, that's what I would say. It's like, hey, welcome. We have a Pear Deck application right here we're going to use. I would get them to log into it. So we go ahead and we're going to do a community builder. But today, guys, today's lesson is going to be around passwords. That's what we're going to talk about. We've been kind of leading up to this one and we're getting there. Just to remind you, if you need anything, I'm going to be available in chat. I'm going to be looking at that periodically. So if you do have something, let me know, raise your hand. If you also, what best practice is always, if you can, have your image, have your video up. That way, if you have any questions or anything, you can always, I can see you and we can get going on that. So you always want to remind yourself, if you ever need me, you can always get me in chat. I am checking that throughout the class, as well as, if you want to show me you're there and stuff, we do have you can always turn on your video, but we'll keep going from there and we'll have plenty of time to get started. So today, guys, we're going to talk about passwords. Passwords is our topic. So again, like I mentioned, welcome back. I hope you guys had a great day off, and today we're going to have a great evening as we go ahead and go back through our presentation today. What you guys can expect. So today, what you can expect, a little community builder. We're going to have a course starter article. We're going to do a Kahoot review from last class. We're also going to have a password lecture and kind of a little discussion with each other. We'll have a little brain break for you so you can chill out and relax for a few minutes. We'll have a password worksheet, and we'll also have a password lab and a discussion. We'll do Think Like a Hacker activity. It's kind of a breakout room activity, and we'll have an exit ticket. So as you guys know, I always like to over plan. So we'll see how far we can get into this. Some of the stuff we may have to get into next time, but I do like to make sure I do have it available to you. So if we go a little further, if we have more time, we can. Today, guys, to kick us off, we are going to have a little entrance ticket. So I do have the entrance tickets here. You will also see it if you look in your folder today on passwords. It is in your folder. So if it'll go for me right here, this will be today's date, and then it'll have the password folder here. You will see your entrance ticket, which is right here, and all the information that we're going for. So if for some reason you're not staying along with me, or you have to take a bathroom break or something, it's going to be right here for you as well. It's going to be in your folder. So it's going to be right here. I'm also, guys, going to share this little link with you in the chat. So that way you have it available to you in the chat here. So this is going to be the entrance ticket. So on this entrance ticket, guys, just so you know what you'd be looking at, today, we're going to have a little bit about cybersecurity. So this one's going to talk about, how are you doing today? How do you feel about the material from last class? Is there anything you might want to talk to me about as we approach the end of the first semester? And is there anything, are you interested in learning more about virtual internships and any kind of things in the cybersecurity field? As you guys know, last week I got a lot of them in, I shared them with you. But if you are someone who's really highly interested in that, let me know, and I can definitely put you on my radar to make sure that you get that I follow up with you and get those to you as soon as possible. Also, are you interested in joining our Nexus Hawks Virtual Cybersecurity Club? This meets every other Wednesday when after-school buses are running from 3 to 3:30 and 1349. Just also a little reminder of the digital resources consent form. If you haven't got that in, please get that in as soon as possible, because again, we are doing those labs in Virginia Cyber Range, and I want to make sure we're all legit. I want to make sure we're all caught up with everything that we need to stay in compliance and be able to do these ranges. And if there's anything else that you want me to know, that is going to be kind of the exit ticket, just kind of to get us started today. We would, and what we would do in this is we would give people time to go ahead and play with this. So we'd go ahead, give people time to play with this. But again, for this lesson, we don't really need to play with that. So just to let you know, guys, that's our entrance ticket. We have this community builder today. Community builder, we're going to go ahead and just kind of get to know each other as we do every day. So as you know, it is going to be Halloween. So if one of these has to go, which one would have to go? So typically what I would do on this, Monique, I would say, okay, students, which one's got to go? If I had to pick one to kind of kick us off, I would have you drag your little icon on here. And I would say, okay, if I have to go, Milky Way has got to go in my world. That's just not that's the one that's always left at the end of the bag. And then hopefully we'd get together and someone would say, Reese's, that's horrible, that's nasty. And we would have a little conversation about one of these. So hopefully it was kind of getting people, getting them to start talking, hopefully build that community, those type of things. We would also have this one, pick one, kick one. So I try to get it started with the kids. I'd say, okay, pick one of these. If you had to keep one of these, which one would you pick and which one would you kick? And they would probably say, okay, Burger King. I think most of it's unanimous usually in my classes. Burger King's the one to go. But you never know. Some people may have, strong feelings about their McDonald's, and hopefully we get a conversation going back and forth. Do you like any of these, Monique?
I would go with the Burger King burger, but the McDonald's fries, hands down.
Oh yeah. So definitely those fries, you can't beat them. I wish they had them when we
Nope.
were younger. Those were great. But hopefully we'd engage students, get them kind of talking, get to know a little more about them. And then a lot of times this goes off to like, I don't like either of those, I'm going to go over here and go to Taco Bell. So we would have a great conversation just to kind of get them talking. I usually do about 3 of these. The third one would say, if you could have if you could have a robot do any part of your job or life, what would it do? And then, some people would say, I'd have them do my homework or, go behind the wheel or whatever it is. So hopefully we would just kind of get that. I would encourage the students to, write your response in here or write it in chat, whatever. And then we would hopefully get them engaged and start talking about it. So we'd have about 3 of those when we would start in that. I'd say next thing that we're going to do, guys, is we're going to have a course starter article. And beyond the information for cybersecurity, what I like to do is I like to have a course starter article. So what I typically do is I'll say, okay, Medtronic has a device for this piece in particular, where if you are a diabetic or you have some kind of heart implant, they can be hacked by hackers. And then students will be like, hey, I didn't know that. That's interesting. And then what we would do here is we would watch a little video on YouTube that kind of illustrates the point we're talking about. So it would be right here. We go ahead about the video and they would talk about
stuff like pacemakers or insulin pumps, stuff that's implanted into your body. They can be lifesavers for so many people, but they can also be hacked. In theory, okay, in theory.
So we would go ahead, we would talk about we would go ahead and talk maybe about the video that's talking about. Some kids would be like, hey, I didn't know that. Or then I would say, would you have one of these in your body if you needed it? And then hopefully get talking about, oh, I didn't know hackers can actually do that. And how in today's world, you have to be a very smart consumer as well as someone who has these devices. So hopefully it would kind of, spark interest in people, not only instead of going beyond the material that kind of changes with cybersecurity, this kind of gets to like the things that are in the news, things that are in the hot. So we would go over the article. We have a video that accompanies it, kind of explains it to them, and we would have share your thoughts. I would also remind them that it is right here. If they want to learn more about this, that I have a course starter article right here for them. It has the article and it has a YouTube video. So if for some reason a student wasn't here in class, they could easily catch up and they would know exactly what we did that day. So the course starter video, kind of a fun thing there to talk about it. I would use this as a Pear Deck slide, share your thoughts. Hopefully, kids would either open up their cameras or they would open up their chat rooms, talk about all the, fun things that can happen with a hacker, all the scary things that this could be about. And then talk about their, in the future, it's almost like you have to be very cyber educated just to be able to have any devices. So it puts it into perspective for them. So I'd be like, all right, students, we would talk about it. Hopefully we'd have that feedback back and forth. Then we would have like a recap. So just to let you know, before we move on today, we're going to have a recap from the last class. I would talk to them about a Kahoot. So we would have a Kahoot, and this would be the basic cybersecurity practice. So what I would do is I would go to Kahoot. Let me just go over here. I'd put it up here. And then I would log in. And then I would share the link with them. So I would log in right here. And then I would share a link with the students when it comes to cybersecurity basics. And I hate when it picks that up here. Gotta love it. I'm continuing for free. Thank you. But you'd bring it up here. And the students, we might have, so I have a lot of things, but it'd be cybersecurity basics. So let me just find the right one right here. Have it here. So what I would do is I would start it for them. I'd find it here and say, all right, this is the one. So we have cybersecurity and system basics. So I would start this for them. It would have 23 questions. I would say, okay, we're loading here. We go in classic mode, and then I would give everybody this on the screen. So it's like getting ready to join Kahoot. It would get the game in. I would wait for the players to start on this, and we would go ahead and we would start. I would read the questions to them as we're going through it, and then they would pick it on there. So this was kind of an engaging activity that they understand from the step that we did review from the last class. For this exercise, I'm not going to make you do a Monique because it is just part of our exercise, but it is here. Also, I would remind them that if they, got any wrong after they finished it here, that it's also listed in today's folder. It's also listed in their folder that we would have today. It is going to be Kahoot for individual play after class. So if they, again, kind of didn't do so well on those, or they just wanted a little extra practice after the class, it's right here. So I'd have them click on this. This would take them to the Kahoot, and then they could go ahead for individual play, put in that game pin that we just had, and they could play on their own outside of class. So that is kind of what we would do for that materials for them when it comes to playing Kahoot to review the materials from last class. Pretty quick little thing, 23 questions, not too bad for them. After that, we would say, do you guys have any questions? Anybody kind of struggling with that material? If someone said, hey, I am struggling with this material, then what I would do is I would go back, I would take their information down and reach with them after class, reach with them in a chat room and say, okay, when we come after class, I'm going to get back with you and we'll go over that particular topic that they were having issues with. Today I would talk about, then I would transition to today's discussion. We're going to say we're going to have it on passwords. I didn't build these slides out, but I would say the password lecture would include what is a password, why is passwords important, best practices for protecting yourself using passwords, and why hackers want your password. So we would have some quick slides that kind of went over these particular topics. During those slides, we'd ask, kind of engage the students with some of the questions that would go into this, but we would do that. After we had the lecture part of it where we did that, we would have a little brain break. And the brain break would kind of talk about passwords. And this is, it's a funny one. I'll show you a little hot minute of it. It's kind of a funny one to kind of get their brain.
Y'all wait there has just what you need for your home.
Dear Kelly Clarkson. We've been hearing a lot about cybersecurity lately, largely because of what happened to Sony. Companies and individuals are more concerned about the safety and privacy of their information than ever. President Obama has unveiled a number of new proposals this week to crack down on hackers, and he plans to address this in the State of the Union speech on Tuesday. And it's great that the government is working on this, but the truth of the matter is we need to do a better job of protecting ourselves. The most popular password in the United States is password 123. And as long as that's the case, we're vulnerable. So today we sent a camera out on Hollywood Boulevard to help people by asking them to tell us their password. And this is how that went.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon.
And what's its name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where'd you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hillfield Area Senior High School.
Oh, when did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay. Has you had this cat for a while?
Yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie. Mm-hmm. So like a password of yours would be Jolie and then a number.
Yeah.
Like number 1?
Like my birthday.
Oh, when is your birthday?
June 12th.
Oh, nice.
So one of the things that I would do in here is I would go ahead and just have a little brain break, kind of a funny. I wish we had more control over the videos, but again, you get what you get on YouTube. You don't really have control over that. But what I would do after that is that I would have a little question for them, and it would be a Pear Deck slide. Would you share your information that easy? And then they would be able to say yes, no, maybe, or I can't believe people would do that. That's crazy. But hopefully that would kind of spark some conversations about their passwords, about, that people, shouldn't do that. So they'd start recognizing that you shouldn't do that and how easy it is for someone to guess your password. We'd even talk about how if you're online and you have one of those quizzes that you might get, whether it's, whatever it is, that you have to be very careful because a lot of times people are mining your passwords or trying to get at your password. So that's kind of just a funny one, how easy you would share your information. We would have a password worksheet. Now on this password worksheet, we would have them in their folder here. I would say, okay, guys, we have a password worksheet for you. This right here is going to be one that you will accompany you as you go through this lecture. So that way, did I post the wrong thing? Oops, sorry about that. Maybe I went to the wrong thing on here. But the password worksheets, the password worksheet assignment, you would click on this and this would take you to a little worksheet. And this is what they would do as we're going through the material. So this would be the worksheet that they would go for the next part of the slide. So I would tell them, guys, we have a password worksheet here. As we're going through today's activities, you can record your information here in this little worksheet. So the two things we're going to do, have I been pwned? Have I been pwned? Password meter, and then also how the cracking times for your password. So these would be we would record the information from their worksheet here. We would go through each of these. So on this one, it says, have I been pwned? We give them a certain amount of time and they could look up one of their email addresses. So if they have a Gmail address, they could see, have I been pwned? Has it been in any kind of breaches? So they could see about their email addresses have been pwned. They would record their answers right here on this little worksheet. It says, list the email addresses that you're checking and has your email been involved in a breach. So as they do that exercise, they would do it. I would go through it with them and we would talk about like, have I been pwned? We'd click on it. We would put an email here and like I would demonstrate it. Like this is an old one that I have, and they could see, okay, have I been pwned? How to do it. And I could say, oh no, you've been pwned in 21 data breaches. So that way I could show them how to do it, and then they would do it on their own, record their information on that worksheet. They would go to the next one. The other one is, what was your password part of a breach? So then we would talk about, was your password found in any kind of breaches? Mine was. And then we would go into, test your password and see how fast you can crack it. Now, this one is one that I would not, I wouldn't show them, but like if your password was password, it would tell you, you could just check it out here. See how, it's very weak. Your password is very weak. So they would put in a password they have. They wouldn't share it with us, but I would show them, okay, if you had password, you put password here, it's very weak. And they could see the best practices for doing those passwords. And then here's how fast someone can crack your password. So we would definitely give them time to do this, but this is how fast someone could crack your password. You're going to go right here and check your password. So password, and you would say your year, the year would be 2020 is where it goes to. And in 0.19 milliseconds, that password could be cracked. So this shows them how fast a password could be cracked by someone who has just the tiniest amount of knowledge of how to do this. They would record all their answers right here on this password worksheet that you see here. That's in their folder. And they're also we're going to do a lab in a minute, and I would have lab reflections here. We would share your thoughts. So hopefully we would, get some discussions going about, did they know how fast things could, their password could be broken into? Have they been in any breaches? So depending on how fast or how conversation flows, this could be a long lesson or this could be a multi-day lesson, depending on how the conversation goes. But that we would try with that one. Then we'd have kind of a lesson review time. So before we would go ahead here, we would have a little lesson review time since we just talked about passwords. And we would have a quizzy as well. So we would have this quizzy, and I would go quizzy. It was right there, quizzy.join. Right here, I would log in, give them the same information right here. I would say, Andrea Wells, I have my cybersecurity review lesson right here. We have 7 questions. Again, they would log in, and then we would just go ahead and start it up here. So it would be like, just things about your password. And this is just a sample of what they do. Should you have unique passwords for every site? This is one of the topics that we were talking on. And of course, that's the answer. That's what right here. So double jeopardy. You go through all 7 of these. That way they can go ahead here and kind of test their knowledge on what's happening with that. After we did quizzy, after those 7 questions, kind of just, okay, that's what you did. We're going to we would have a password lab. Now, I am assuming this password lab that we have done passwords before in the past. I would also have a little folder here for them when they go ahead. It's called the Virginia Cyber Range Password Lab. I would let them know like, hey guys, we've done these labs before. I'm going to go through it with you. As you're going through it, we're going to go right here and you can follow along. If you need a link to log into the Virginia Cyber Range, I have it right here. And I would show them where it is in their folder, and I would show it in here, show them how to go in and log in for their particular class. I would also take them here and I would say, okay, guys, we're also going to do this lab. Now, this is a lab, and I would go through it with them. And as we went through it, this would be one where they would have on the Kali Linux machine, they would go ahead here, set up a lab, and also learn how to use their password. How quickly can your password be stolen? And they would I would go through it with them. And I'm also assuming when we're doing this that we've done this before. So this would be something that we would be working on together. This would not be something like they would just be going off on their own doing. We've done this before. So in the Virginia Cyber Range is the password lab. I would talk to them about where they can see it in Schoology. We're going to go through it as a class so they could see it on their screen as I'm doing it. And then after that, I would let them know that after we go through it together as a class, I did have on this worksheet, it says lab reflections passwords, where they're going to answer some questions. What'd you learn by doing the lab? What questions do you have about the lab? What'd you learn about password hacking and cracking? What'd you like about the lab? What you didn't like about the lab? And what would you like to learn more of? So this would be part of that worksheet. That way they could go through it afterward, just to kind of reflect on what they learned or wanted more of, or didn't understand or didn't like. So that's what we would do for the Virginia Cyber Range Lab. After that, we would discuss it. So hopefully they'd have some good questions. They'd be like, I don't understand this. This is horrible, whatever the feedback is. That way we can kind of go through it and kind of work together on it. And again, this would be something we would do as a breakout room. So this would be Think Like a Hacker email. So one of the activities I like to do in this one is Think Like a Hacker email. What they do in this exercise is that they have an overview of an activity. I tell them that we're going to think like we're going to think like a hacker. I'll tell them how to look up myself, my coworker Megan Muchler, or a parent using Google search. A lot of times I've cleared this with my coworker, so she's perfectly aware that my students are going to look her up, and that's what she's okay with it. And you show them how to write an email, put them in a breakout rooms to work together to craft an email of someone they are going to target, and then you go into breakout rooms to answer questions. And I'll go and make sure they're okay. And then we'll come out of those breakout rooms. Before I put you in a breakout room, though, I would show you right here of what that would look like online. So right here, we do have another thing, Think Like a Hacker assignment for them. I would instruct them about how to do this, but it would also be right here. So this would be a breakout room assignment, so they would know if they missed this one, that this might be one that I would excuse if they weren't in class that day. But here, when you go in your groups, I would instruct them, you're going to think like a hacker. Here is the different parts of an email. You have the subject line, the sender, recipient, salutation, email, closing, and signature. I would even show them possibly an email of a lady who I thought was actually going to target me. And then we're talking about the name of the person drafting the email. They would go ahead, and each of the groups, they'd be assigned roles. So there'd be someone who was the writer. There'd be someone who's going to speak to the group. And there was a person who's going to be doing research. And then the second part, they would go ahead and they would write that up. So they would say, okay, who are you targeting? After Google search, what'd you find out about this person? So we would instruct them like how to go on LinkedIn and look up Miss Muchler to see what she is doing. We would talk after Google search. What did you find out about the person? What would you as a group kind of target the information for, so they can understand more about this person? So knowing she's a good-natured person, you might send her an email from her alumni association saying they're trying to get back after COVID and they really want her help. And then what's your group learning about? What they're targeting someone. And then right here, they'd actually craft the email together. So in their breakout groups, they would take this kind of little assignment and they would work together in your groups. So they would have this as to guide them. I would go ahead here. I'd go back to the information here, and I would go ahead and put them in breakout rooms. So let me just go ahead here. Monique, I'll put you in a make breakout room right here.
All righty.
So I'm going to open that room. Awesome. So I would open that room for you. Awesome. So you're in there. I would go back and join you. This breakout room, I would just say, hey, how are you guys doing today? How do you feel about writing this email? Do you have your people together? Do you have the person who's going to be the writer? Do you have an idea about how to do Google research? Are you guys cool? What can I do to help you? We would talk about what it was. We talk about what they were going to deliverable would be when they're talking to the class, that type of thing. So that's kind of what we would go there. I go to each room. So I'd go to your room, I go to the next room if we had wherever the classes were. And then I would go back and I'd kind of keep rotating. I keep rotating in and saying, hey, just checking. I know you guys may not have wrote an email like this before, but how you doing? How's it feeling? How's your research? And making sure they're on track. And if someone wasn't like on camera or they weren't talking, I've had that before, want to make sure that, hey, Bobby, okay, if you're not in here, want to make sure you guys are okay. Bobby, are you participating? How you doing? Were you still here with me? So just kind of having that going, so I will go ahead now. I'm going to take you out of the breakout room. Let's make you out of here. Oh, hope I didn't cut you out. Did I cut you out?
Nope, still here.
You're still here. Good, good, good. Don't you love it when it's like, oh no, where'd it go? So sorry about that. So I do the Think Like a Hacker activity. And Monique, can you see my room? Can you see my screen just so I can see what you're?
I can see your screen. I see you.
Okay, just making sure on that one. So I have it here. Aha, you now brought you back. Sorry about that. I brought you here. So I would have I would have breakout room 1, 2, and 3. Again, I would go and try to talk to people, see how you're doing. What can I do for you? After that, I'd bring them back in. We might have 15 minutes, but again, we could, depending on how they're doing, kind of extend that or, make it less, depending on how the flow goes when we're talking with them. Then again, we would talk about your emails. We'd have them present on their emails, talking about who they were trying to do, how they targeted their person, why they targeted their person. At the end of the day, I would say, okay, guys, that was our last activity today. We're going to wrap up with an exit ticket we're going to wrap that up. And I would let them know that I put it into their folder today. So if for some reason they weren't here or had to move away for a minute, I do have the exit ticket here for them, but I will go ahead and put that in the chat box for them. So I would take this and I would put that in the chat box for them, just so they could see what that was going on, what was happening. So I put this form in there for them. I would also tell them it's going to go over any kind of the password discussion we talked about. Do we have any questions about the password that we did in class? Would you like to do more Virginia Cyber Range labs? Was there anything else you want me to know? And was there any concepts that, we'd like more assistance on? So that would kind of just be a recap of the exit ticket that we would do for that particular class. And then the next thing we would talk about what's coming up next. So we'll talk about, okay, guys, we did this great thing on passwords today. Next time's coming up next, you can talk about software exploits. So that's going to come up next. At the very end of the lesson, what I'd like to do is I like to remind you, if you need help, if there's something I can do between now and the next class, let me know. You can always contact me at ajwells@fcps.edu. My direct line is 703-924-9647, just so I can see if there's anything that I can do for you after class. So that would be kind of how I would end it. I would also, tell them thank you for coming today. And then I would try to see if there's anybody else. I would say, is there anybody else in chat that needs anything? Is there anything I can do to help you out there? Did anybody get stuck on anything? And does anybody need any kind of assistance? And I would go back to the chat to see if anybody's there. Hopefully we would have that rapport so they would go ahead and talk to me. So that is kind of be the end of what I would be doing on this one, Monique. That would be my last thing there that I would be hanging out with them to talk about. And I was just trying to find my screen so I can go ahead and stop this. So this is kind of the last thing. You got to love it sometimes. You got to love it when your buttons, I'm like, where did my...
I'm still in the room. I can hit the button to say leave room.
Yes, if you don't mind,
So
you could do that. That would be perfect. Thank you so much.
okay, no problem. I'll be back in a second.
Awesome. There we go. Right. All right. So it took us out. Yay. Gotta love it. I had multiple screens open. Kind of fun. Well, Monique, that's kind of what I would do for them at the very end of it. I would go ahead and make sure that they knew I was here for them. If there's anything I can do for them. And again, this is one that if they went along with me, hopefully they would have time. We would have a lot of time for breakouts. We would have a lot of time for questions. It could take 2 days for this. It could take 1 day. Just depends on the flow of the class and who they are. But that's pretty much it. Well, I'll go ahead and stop recording. And then if there's anything, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and stop that one.